So I was deciding what to speak about this year. Last year I read from Rattlesnakes, Dobie's book that I inhaled as a kid. It was so scary to me, and I love that book. But one of our speakers last year was Don Graham, who teaches the course that Dobie established at the University of Texas on writing. And it is called I'm going to get this correct here, The Guide to Life and Literature of the Southwest. And Mr. Dobie taught this for a long, long time, and Don Graham is now teaching it as well at the University of Texas. And some of the aspects to the, don't you love these glasses with 4 or 5 different lenses? I never know what I'm looking at here. You've got women pioneers, Texas Rangers, fighting Texians, pioneer doctors, mountain men, Santa Fe and the Santa Fe Trail, stagecoaches, freighting, Pony Express, range life, cowboys, cattle, and sheep. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. He's got 33 different segments to the course that he touches on. And tonight I'm going to read a little bit about the declaration on why Dobie wanted to teach this course and how he set it up. In the University of Texas, I teach a course called Life and Literature of the Southwest. About 1929, I had a brief guide to books concerning the Southwest mimeographed. In 1931, it was included by John William Rogers in a booklet entitled Finding Literature on the Texas Plains. After that, I revised and extended the guide 3 or 4 times, during the process distributing several thousand copies of the mimeograph forms. Now the guide has grown too long, and I trust the nth printing of it will prevent my making further editions, though within a short time new books will come out, and that should be added. Yet the guide is fragmentary, incomplete, and in no sense a bibliography. Its emphasis varies according to my own indifferences and ignorances, as well as according to my own sympathies and knowledge. It is strong on the character and ways of life of the early settlers, on the growth of the soil, and on everything pertaining to the range. It is weak on information concerning politicians and on citations to studies which, in the manner of orthodox PhD theses, merely transfer, here it comes, bones from one graveyard to another. That's his famous quote. It is designed primarily to help people of the Southwest see significances in the features of the land to which they belong, to make their environments more interesting to them, their past more alive, to bring them to a realization of the values of their own cultural inheritance, and to stimulate them to observe. It includes most of the books about the Southwest that people in general would agree on as making a good read. Now this is from his segment, his class that he taught on horses, mustangs, and cow ponies. The West was discovered, battled over, and won by men on horseback. Spanish conquistadores saddled their horses in Veracruz and rode until they had mapped the continents from the Horn to Montana and from the Floridas to the harbors of the Californias. The padres with them rode on horseback too and made every mission a horse ranch. The national dance of Mexico, the jarabe, is an interpretation of the clicking of hooves and the pawing and prancing of spirited horses that the Aztecs noted when the Spaniards came. Likewise, the chief contribution made by white men of America to the folk songs of the world, the cowboy songs, are rhythm to the walk of horses. I did not know that. Astride horses introduced by the conquistadores of the Americas, the Plains Indians became almost a separate race from the foot-moving tribes of the East and the stationary pueblos of the Rockies. The men that later conquered and corralled these wild-riding Plains Indians were plainsmen on horses and cavalrymen. The earliest American explorers and trappers of both Plains and Rocky Mountains went out in the saddle. The first industrial link between the East and the West was a mounted pack train beating out the Santa Fe Trail. On west, beyond the end of this trail in Spanish California, even the drivers of oxen rode horseback. The first transcontinental express was the Pony Express. Outlaws and bad men were called long riders. The Texas Ranger who followed them was, according to his own proverb, no better than his horse. Booted sheriffs from Brownsville on the Rio Grande to the Hole in the Wall in the Bighorn Mountains lived in the saddle. climactic of all the riders rode the cowboy, who lived with horse and herd. In the Old West, the phrase, left afoot, meant nothing short of being left flat on your back. A man on foot is no man at all, the saying went. If an enemy could not take a man's life, the next best thing was to take his horse. Where cow thieves went scot-free, horse thieves were hanged. And to say that a man was as common as a horse thief was to express the nadir of commonness. The pillow of the frontiersman who slept with a six-shooter under it was a saddle, and hitched to the horn was the loose end of a stake rope. Just as Colonel Colt made all men equal in a fight, the horse made all men equal in swiftness and mobility. The proudest names of civilized languages, when literally translated, mean horseman. Eques, caballero, chevalier, cavalier. Until just yesterday, the man on horseback had been for centuries the symbol of power and pride. The advent of the horse from Spanish sources so changed the ways and psychology of the Plains Indians that they entered into what historians call the age of horse culture. Almost until the automobile came, the whole West and Southwest were dominated by a horse culture. Material on range horses is scattered through the books listed under Range Life, Stagecoaches, Freighting, Pony Express. No thorough comprehension of the Spanish horse of the Americas is possible without consideration of this horse's antecedents, and that involves a good deal of the horse history of the world. That's the intro to the course, and then he gives you a list of books that would take you the rest of your life to read. Number 24 in his course is called The Bad Man Tradition. Don't you love these titles? Plenty of six-shooter play is to be found in most of the books about old-time cowboys, yet hardly one of the professional bad men was a representative cowboy. Bad men of the West and cowboys alike wore six-shooters and spurs. They drank each other's coffee. They had a fanatical passion for liberty for themselves. But the representative cowboy was a reliable hand, hanging through drought, blizzard, and high water to his herd, whereas the bona fide bad man lived on the dodge. Between the killer and the cowboy standing up for his rights, or merely shooting out the lights for fun, there was as much difference as between Adolf Hitler and Winston Churchill. Of course, the elements were mixed in the worst of the bad men, as they are in the best of all good men. No matter what the deductions analysis may lead to, the fact remains that the Western bad men of open range have become a part of the American tradition. They represent six-shooter culture at its zenith, the wild and woolly side of the West, a stage between receding Bowie knife individualism of the backwoods and blackguard machine gun gangsterism of the city. The songs about Sam Bass, Jesse James, and Billy the Kid reflect popular attitude toward the hard-riding outlaws. Sam Bass, Jesse James, Billy the Kid, the Daltons, Cole Younger, Joaquin Murrieta, John Wesley Hardin, Al Jennings, Belle Starr, and other long raiders with their guns in their hands have had their biographies written over and over. They were not nearly as immoral as certain newspaper columnists lying under the cloak of piety. As time goes on, they, like antique Robin Hood and the late Pancho Villa, recede from all realistic judgment. If the picture show finds in them models for generosity, gallantry, and fidelity to a code of liberty, and if the public finds them picturesque, then philosophers may well be thankful that they lived, rode, and shot. The long-tail heroes of the revolver, to pick a phrase from Mark Twain's unreverential treatment of them in his novel, in his book, Roughing It, often did society a service in shooting each other, aside from providing entertainment of future generations. As the old cattleman of Alfred Henry Lewis' Wolfville story says, a heap of people need a heap of killing. Nor can the bad men be logically segregated from the long-haired killers on the side of the law like Wild Bill Hickok and Wyatt Earp. W.H. Hudson once advanced the theory that bloodshed and morality go together. If American civilization proceeds, the rage for collecting books on bad men will probably subside until a copy of Miguel Antonio Otero's The Real Billy the Kid will bring no higher price than a first edition of A. Edward Newton's The Amenities of Book Collecting. Pat Garrett, sheriff of Lincoln County, New Mexico, killed the kid about midnight, July 14, 1881. The next spring, his authentic life of Billy the Kid was published. At Santa Fe, at least partly written according to good evidence by a newspaperman named Ash Upton. This biography is one of the rarities in Western Americana. In 1927, it was republished by Macmillan in New York under the title Pat F. Garrett's Authentic Life of Billy the Kid. This is now out of print but remains basic. The most widely circulated biography has been The Saga of Billy the Kid by Walter Noble Burns. It contains a deal of fictional conversation that it has no doubt contributed to the Robin Hoodizing of the lethal character baptized as William H. Boney, who was born in New York, William H. Bonney, who was born in New York in 1859 and now lives with undiminished vigor as Billy the Kid. As for his provocations, popular imagination, represented by writers of all degrees, goes on playing on him with cumulative effect. As a figure in literature, the Kid has come to lead the whole field of Western bad men. Listen, I really recommend, if you have the time, to get a copy. You can get it on the internet, of the Guide to Life and Literature of the Southwest. It's fascinating reading, and he recommends some amazing books that I didn't even know existed. Good stuff and well worth reading today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.